All right, welcome to this weekend edition of Brighteon Broadcast News. This is for Saturday, November 11th, 2023. I'm Mike Adams. Thank you for joining me. We've got some breaking news here about systemic failures of critical infrastructure systems, both in the United States and also Australia. We'll get into that here in a second. I've been in touch with Maria Z from Z Media. She's also a host on our network, Brighteon.tv, and she just endured a multi-day total comms outage in Australia that took down emergency services, 911, internet, everything. It was quite a dramatic failure. We'll get to that. Also, I've got some new footage, about 5 minutes. I was in the lab earlier today, and I've filmed the dioxin testing gas chromatography mass spec equipment. So I'm going to give you a first look here today at what's coming up in our lab. We actually have it installed, and it's under vacuum now, which is necessary for all mass spec equipment. And I show you what the gas chromatography column looks like, and the auto sampler and some of the helium gas inputs and things like that. So it's a pretty cool little preview about what's coming up. Now, I'm going to be trained coming up here, I don't know, in a few weeks or a month or whatever. I'm going to go through several days of training by a professional on this instrument, and I will learn how to run it, and how to build methods and so on, which shouldn't be difficult for me because I've done several other mass spec instruments and liquid chromatography and ICP-MS and so on. So I'm going to be up to speed on this very quickly, and then we're going to start testing food samples for dioxins. Now, dioxins, as you may know, are ridiculously toxic at very low exposures. Now, dioxins are created when you burn polyvinyl chloride compounds, such as PVC, which happens when people burn backyard trash, by the way, and they throw, there's PVC in clothing, there's PVC in tile, and of course, plumbing, PVC pipes. Any kind of house that burns or commercial building that burns, there are dioxins created in that process. And then what happens is those dioxins settle on farms and grazing land that's grazed by, cattle and sheep and chickens and what have you. And it ends up in the animal products. So milk, cheese, meat in particular will definitely have some trace level of dioxins in them. But what we're going to be doing is going to the grocery store, going through fast food restaurants, and measuring dioxin levels in various animal products, but also testing our own products. For example, we sell whey protein, and we want to make sure it's dioxin free. And we also sell collagen, and we want to make sure that's dioxin free. So we're going to add this, and we will be the only, really the only formulator or supplement manufacturer, I think, in the world that routinely tests their products for dioxins. Nobody else does it. Nobody. And the other cool thing, by the way, is that this instrument, this gas chromatography instrument, can also test for certain pesticides and also some VOCs and other things, some biomarkers in certain botanicals, including cannabinoids in some cases, and many other things that are really important. So we're going to have a lot of uses for this particular instrument in the lab. I will keep you posted on that. But getting to the main story today, we are seeing infrastructure failures that are catastrophic, widespread, and there's something wrong with the structure of our modern society. Instead of being decentralized, instead of having redundant nodes that can still function on their own, we now have one big centralized system that is highly subject to systemic failure. And so just in the last week, we've seen, for example, ACH bank transaction failures affecting many hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of transactions across major U.S. banks. It all started last Friday, a week from yesterday, and it continued throughout the week. And it was traced back to a problem in a file. Probably somebody wrote the wrong code or put in, missing a comma somewhere in the file. Oh, put an extra semicolon in there. Oh, it's missing a quotation mark. And then, the whole banking system craters, right? So some little sliver of that was experienced all last week in the United States. And then now we have this massive, massive outage in Australia. And then also we've had hospitals going down because of cyber-related events, and we're going to get to that. But let me bring you the story on the major telecommunications outage that just affected about half of Australia. And again, Maria Z texted me on this. She said, quote, Australia was hit with one of the largest communication outages in history this week, with over half the country having no phones, no internet, 911 was affected, hospitals unable to be contacted, the entire city of Melbourne, its train network was completely shut down. Yeah, because, it needs telecom to work. We still have not had full services restored, and we've been told it could happen again. Again, that's from Maria Z, from Z Media. There's a story that she sent me from news.com.au. Optus CEO, now Optus is the company that provides the telecom services throughout Australia. Optus CEO reveals how customers will be compensated for outage, as she admits the nationwide outage could happen again. Oh, joy, right? The embattled CEO of Optus has admitted another mass network blackout can't be ruled out, as the company reveals how it plans to compensate customers. And guess how they're going to compensate people? They're going to give you free data. Yeah, right. So their system that doesn't work, you'll get to use it more, even when it doesn't work. So they're going to give you, more data. Who cares? We don't want more data. We want this thing to work. The CEO of this company, Optus, is a woman named Kelly Bayer Rosmarin. That's interesting. Rosmarin. I don't know. That's interesting. Because there's a molecule in the rosemary herb called rosmarinic acid. I wonder. Anyway, she's in dire straits right now. And she said, we are deeply sorry about the impact small businesses had yesterday. And we appreciate that it was in varying degrees. In other words, she's saying, some people were screwed, Some customers lost, all kinds of money over this. But it was also hospitals going down, first responders going down. This outage has been called the worst in Australian history. And she says it could happen again. Quote, when you run a critical infrastructure, it's always a possibility, she says. Yeah, wow, that doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy inside if I'm living in Australia. It's like, gosh, you don't even seem confident. How come you can't stop this from happening? So anyway, this telecom firm was designed with multiple layers of, quote, fallback and redundancy, which she said it was based on a modern intelligent router network. But whatever happened, which we'll get to in a second, it caused a, quote, cascading failure that resulted in the shutdown of our services. And then our engineers are completing a thorough investigation so we can capture all the learnings and continue to improve. Yeah, make sure you capture all those learnings. Don't let those learnings get away. Those learnings are slippery. Capture them learnings. Rosemary, Rosmarinic, whatever your name is. Man. And this outage lasted days for some people. 3 days for some customers. And again, half the country was down and parts of the entire country were impacted. And then she was asked, the CEO was asked, why did it take so long to solve this problem? And here's what she said. This will not give you confidence. And by the way, much the same is true in the United States and Canada, in Western European countries. She said, quote, it took us time to reboot the service. What? It took you 3 days to reboot the service? Of course, we worked as hard and as fast as we possibly could, she says. We have a team of network engineers, and we're able to begin restoring services from about noon. This does not make me feel good about this system. So, of course, a lot of people are wondering, what happened? What was the real cause behind this? And it turns out The Guardian has a story with the following headline: Optus network outage may have been caused by the same issue that brought Facebook down in 2021. And it turns out that it was a, quote, configuration issue, or at least that's what is believed to be the case. So Cloudflare, which is one of the biggest network hubs in the world for internet traffic, noticed a spike in what's called Border Gateway Protocol announcements, the BGPs, from Optus that were coinciding with the time that Optus's network went offline. So BGP, this acts as a roadmap for the internet, and the announcements tell the rest of the internet, essentially, they're saying here the easiest way to a particular location. Actually, these are routing shortcuts, okay, for border routers, essentially. Border routers are the big traffic cops on the edges of major ISPs and telecom companies. And border routers pass traffic, onto the next router somewhere down the line that, wherever the destination may be. And this is usually done, of course, by fiber optics these days. And border routers can handle, not just gigabits of traffic per second, but terabits of traffic every second. And what I've noticed about routers and firewalls is that almost no matter who you host with, no matter how big the telecom company is or how famous they are, every telecom company in the world has a guy on staff who doesn't know what he's doing, but he has root access to everything. This guy, we should just call him the destroyer, right? This guy runs around every telco company screwing up router tables and altering configuration files in a way that brings down society or civilization. And this is exactly what happened at Optus. Is some guy, it's always a guy for whatever reason, some guy who had spent too many nights up playing video games and drinking caffeine or watching porn or whatever these geeks do in their off hours, or maybe all three, watching porn, drinking caffeine, and playing a first-person shooter at the same time. And for whatever reason, this configuration file got all jacked up and it started announcing all these new border routes that almost looked like a cyber attack or even, some kind of announcement spam. So anyway, there's a company called Enex Test Lab told Guardian Australia, he said that Optus appeared to have had a failure in routing at 4 a.m. that caused an exponential increase in BGP announcements. And he said the following, this is key. This morning when I woke up, I just instinctively thought it's either a cyber incident or a configuration issue. And 9 times out of 10, it's a configuration issue. When you have such a big issue like that, that's because, Dan the Destroyer got a hold of the config files and screwed it all up. That's what happened. I know that's what happened because I've seen this everywhere. In all my years of running software companies and IT projects and hosting and everything, I know exactly who this guy is. Every organization has this same guy. But get this, single point of failure. So this guy, Tet is his name, from Enex Test Lab, he says the reason why it brought down not just the internet, but also landlines and mobile services is because networks are now IP-based. And when the internet protocol network has an issue, quote, absolutely, it will take down all their systems. In other words, landlines are no longer landlines. Landlines actually go over IP protocols. Landlines use the internet to transmit the landline voice traffic. Like all landlines, or nearly all landlines, are essentially VoIP operations, just pretending to be landlines, okay? And the same thing with, 911 services and emergency responder services. And as we found out, as Maria Z told us, Melbourne's train network was completely shut down. Why? Well, because, the train network needs to function over IP networks. You have to have point-to-point systems that pass IP traffic. And so IP addresses have to be routed correctly. And that was all screwed up thanks to, Dan the Destroyer altering the config file. So this demonstrates one of the main points I've been trying to get across here for a couple of years, which is that our society, in becoming more and more high tech, has become more and more subject to failure. less and less redundant, obviously. Because back in the day when it was, a lot of smaller telecom companies and they used switching systems rather than all IP addresses, it wasn't all digitized back in the day. You actually had more resilience. One system might fail, but it could just be a city that failed or a region that failed. It wouldn't bring down the whole country or the whole internet. But today, everything is interconnected, which means you have single points of failure that can cascade across the entire system and break almost everything. Because, banks were offline. Credit card processing was offline. Transactions, you couldn't go into a store and pay with a debit card, or in the United States, like a food stamp card. You couldn't do anything because all that requires the internet to work in order for the credit card transaction to go through, and the internet was not working. Same thing, you couldn't fill up gas, you couldn't do anything that involved the internet, which these days is almost everything. So we now have a more vulnerable society than we've ever had in history, and no one is really thinking seriously about this problem. We have engineered a system that will ultimately fail because one guy puts one dot in one file in one place and civilization collapses because of it. That's seriously where this goes. We've created such a fragile, non-redundant system. And, I fight against this all the time. I fight against centralization. This is why I have my show called decentralized.tv. It's about decentralized living. And there are decentralized systems out there that function a lot better. There's even peer-to-peer social media network systems like Bastion.com, Bastion, or Quartal, Qortal.org. Those are peer-to-peer distributed systems. I bet those would still work in Australia even when everything else was offline. Like .com sites were offline, but peer-to-peer systems don't need domain name resolution in order to work appropriately. But I guess they still do need routing, so maybe those were clobbered too. In any case, cryptocurrency is very decentralized versus banking, which is highly centralized. So banks can easily fail. They can be brought down, whereas cryptocurrency, especially the larger ones like Bitcoin or Monero on the privacy side, they are very, very difficult to bring down because they're so decentralized. They have so much redundancy. They're very resilient. And, power grid failures, even regional comms failures don't take down Bitcoin. They can make it inconvenient if you're stuck in the area that is affected, but it doesn't pose a systemic failure risk or an existential risk to the entire system. Now, the news actually gets worse from here. It's not just that the structure of modern civilization has single points of failure that can result in cascading catastrophes like what just struck Australia, but the infrastructure that runs, let's say America, the power infrastructure is, for the most part, decades outdated. It hasn't been maintained, and it hasn't been built out to handle the increases in power demand. Specifically, more people are using electric ranges, stoves in their homes, electric hot water heaters. And in some states, they're actually mandating that because they don't want anybody to burn natural gas for some reason, even though natural gas is safe and clean and easy to transport, and it works even when the power grid is down. And natural gas doesn't need IP addresses, it turns out. So, it's very resilient and reliable. But because of all those factors, plus electric vehicles, people plugging in vehicles and sucking down the amps, or I guess technically the kilowatt hours off the power grid, we no longer have a power grid that is sufficient to meet the supply. So NERC, the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, has issued a Winter Reliability Assessment report. This is the WRA for the 2023 through 2024 winter. And it warns that there is, quote, insufficient energy supply during extreme cold spells. And this concern encompasses, well, I'm looking at a map. It's all of Texas. It's almost all the Midwest. It's pretty much all of the East Coast, New England. It does not include Florida, and North Carolina is spared for the most part, but almost every other state, which is, Mississippi, Louisiana, Chicago, Illinois, Michigan, all of them, plus East Coast states and Midwest states, Kansas and Missouri and the Dakotas and so on, they all have higher risk or, quote, potential for insufficient operating reserves in above normal conditions. So Bloomberg covered this and said that the report is, quote, even more dire than last year's report, which said that a quarter of Americans were at risk of cold weather power emergencies. So now it's more than a quarter. It includes the most densely populated areas on the East Coast, a region that relies heavily on natural gas, but it's transitioning to renewable energy. Gas generators there widely failed during a brief but fierce winter storm last December because they broke down or just couldn't get fuel. Now, a lot of this is deliberate. Yes, the Biden regime and the Democrats in particular are shutting down the energy infrastructure of America while telling everybody to go electric. It's a trap. So PJM, this is an interconnection that's on the East Coast, and it also comes inland quite a bit. And it covers 13 states, including Illinois and New Jersey. Covers about 65 million customers. And they published a study that warned about the federal government's decarbonization policies that, quote, present increasing reliability risks during the transition due to a potential timing mismatch between resource retirements, load growth, and the pace of new generation entry, which basically means we ain't got the kilowatt hours that people are demanding, to put it in street slang there. We just ain't got that juice. Or to put it in a like a street speak grammatical structure, which has always fascinated me. Listen to this. Here's a sentence. Ain't nobody gonna have no electricity. Think about that structurally, grammatically or semantically. It's kind of an interesting structure, but you do hear that. Ain't nobody gonna have no power. There's a lot of knots to cancel out in that to try to figure out what what did the sentence say? Anyway, that's beside the point. That's my linguistic geek side coming out. I've always been fascinated by linguistic structures. And that's a fun one right there. But anyway, the point is that there's just not enough electricity. The infrastructure does not exist to serve the demand when there are cold spells in the winter. So, and as you know, I lived through the great cold spell of 2021. I think it was January in Texas when the entire Texas power grid failed, basically. It was catastrophic. And I remember we had rolling blackouts. We had 8 minutes of power every 30 minutes. And the temperatures were insanely cold, especially for Texas. I think it was 5 degrees outside. And it's not supposed to get that cold in central Texas, but it did. And it froze up all the plumbing of the power generation companies and their facilities all froze up. And so then at the same time that everybody was turning on their space heaters or, their furnaces and they were trying to get heat, the power sources were all going offline, bleep, 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 down, and, warning sirens, bleep, bleep, down again, everything's going down. And it got so bad, they just started rolling blackouts. It's just no power. Some people had blackouts for days, and then, of course, all their pipes froze, and then when the heat came back on, they had plumbing leaks, and then that ruined all the 2x4s in the walls and had mold problems. It was a nightmare. That's the year that my dog almost fell through. Well, he did fall through the ice in my pond. Remember that story? And then I found him having fallen through, and I was able to rescue him with an excavator by smashing the ice so he could swim to shore. And fortunately, he is a cold weather breed. This is not my security dog. This is a different dog I have that's got a lot of fur. and he survived falling through the ice. That's how cold it was. The ponds froze, which normally never happens, at least not in this part of Texas. Now, I know some of you up north are laughing. It's like, ponds freeze every year. What are you talking about? Not here. My point is that the power infrastructure in America is not ready for what's coming. And for example, more and more people are moving to Texas or even places like Indiana. Why? Because housing is affordable in Indiana. You don't have to spend a fortune. You can sell your place in California and you can get $1 million for it. And you can go to Indiana, you can buy the same quality of house, even maybe a better house, a bigger yard for, $225,000. And then you could pocket the difference. Now you just live in Indiana, which is a lot more sane anyway than most parts of California. But with more and more people moving into these states, the power grid isn't keeping up. And so we are going to face, just like Australia went through this catastrophic telecom outage, we are going to face in America, or wherever you're listening from, this can affect Canada, this can affect, of course, Western Europe, Australia, Hong Kong even. We are living in a society with very few redundancies, but more centralized control systems that can fail and cause catastrophic domino effects that are way beyond what they should be. I mean, you can lose the telecom infrastructure of an entire nation, or in Australia's case, an entire continent for days on end, at least some substantial portion of that continent. Again, because one guy, Dangerous Dan the Destroyer, altered one line of code in one configuration file, didn't know what he was doing because he's probably got no qualifications to even be there. But remember, there's a guy like that in every organization running around destroying everything, including in Boeing. Who do you think wrote the code to bring down the 737 MAX jets, causing them to crash? Who wrote the code? Dangerous Dan wrote that code. Dan the Destroyer. I don't know why I chose the name Dan. It works with dangerous and destroyer because it starts with D. I apologize if your name is Dan listening to this. You're like, why is he blaming me? No, I'm not. I'm just using alliteration. Now, the healthcare system is also extremely vulnerable to systemic failures. And there was something that happened recently, but I want to backtrack first to the year 2020. And there's a story on fiercehealthcare.com. UHS, which is a hospital chain, UHS hit with massive cyber attack as hospitals reportedly divert surgeries and ambulances. So computer systems at UHS, which operates 400 hospitals in the US and the UK, quote, began to fail over the weekend, and some hospitals have had to resort to filing patient information with pen and paper. No, not paper. According to multiple people familiar with the situation. Yeah, paper is reliable, by the way. Paper doesn't just vanish because somebody, overwrote the configuration file. So UHS hospitals, including those in California, Florida, Texas, Arizona, and Washington, D.C., were left without access to computer and phone systems. It's all down. Oh, you need a surgery? Oh, you have a gunshot wound? Oh, guess what? Yeah, we got nothing for you. We're down. 90,000 employees in this hospital system, and they treat 3.5 million patients every year, and their whole system went down. So, of course, they put out a statement. All right, quote, we implemented extensive IT security protocols and are working diligently with our IT security partners to restore IT operations as quickly as possible. What they didn't say is, Dangerous Dan screwed up a config file. Yeah, we're trying to find Dangerous Dan. We'll pay him anything to reverse, to undo what he did. We just can't find Dangerous Dan. One employee said, quote, we have no access to anything computer-based, including old labs, EKGs, radiology studies. We have no access to our PACS radiology system. No patients died tonight in our ED, but I can surely see how this could happen in large centers due to delay in patient care. So yeah, that's You know it's getting scary when they say no patients died tonight, but could be happening soon, you know? Now, that attack appeared to have been ransomware. One UHS employee said that one of the impacted computer screens changed to a display of a ransom note reading, quote, "Shadow of the Universe." I don't know. There's just something poetically, you know, kind of sadly, tragically hilarious about this. Like, you're in a hospital, you know, you're trying to kill patients with ventilators and deprive them of access to ivermectin. And then a ransomware program takes over and interrupts your mass hospital homicide with a screen that says "Shadow of the Universe," preventing you from killing patients that night, you know? I bet you mortality in the city went down during the ransomware attack that affected the hospital. I bet it did. I bet fewer people died. Now, fast forward 3 years or so to August of this year. So just a couple months ago, CBS News, cyber attack causes multiple hospitals to shut emergency rooms and divert ambulances. See, same thing, right? They have to divert a lot of ambulances. Could be worse. You could be in Gaza, where they're bombing ambulances and hospitals. So, you know, hey, cyber attacks don't seem so bad in contrast. But here it is. The cyber criminals attacked the computer systems of this healthcare provider. The ransomware attack happened at Prospect Medical Holdings of Los Angeles. And they have hospitals and clinics in Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Texas. And they're investigating how the breach happened. They're working to resolve the issue. Yeah, they're looking for Dangerous Dan is what they're doing. Where'd Dan go? What did he do, man? Quote, "Upon learning of this, we took our systems offline to protect them, and we launched an investigation with the help of third-party cybersecurity specialists. While our investigation continues, we're focused on addressing the pressing needs of our patients as we work diligently to murder them with ventilators." Oh, wait a minute. No, that's not what it said. "To return to normal operations as quickly as possible." Yeah, which means murdering them with ventilators. Okay. John Riggy, the American Hospital Association's senior cybersecurity advisor, there's a title for you, said the recovery process after one of these cyber attacks can often take weeks. Weeks, with hospitals in the meantime reverting to paper systems and humans, it's unthinkable, humans to monitor equipment or run records between departments. Can you imagine that? We have to use paper again, pencil and paper. It's the only thing that's reliable. Hey, that's where society is actually going sooner or later, by the way. I mean, I know all these globalists think it's going to be this giant, you know, transhumanism world, and you're all going to live in the computer systems, quantum minds, you know, AI control grids, and you're all going to have a virtual avatar in the metaverse. You know what? None of that is actually going to happen, because Dangerous Dan is going to screw up the config files. The whole system will come crashing down. I mean, Meta has failed anyway. Mark Zuckerberg's project to try to convince people to waste away their lives wearing virtual reality goggles and living in his stupid verse of, I mean, like, what is this? Why would I want to spend time in here when I could be in the real world doing stuff and not getting censored, you know, and tracked and surveilled? I mean, it's insane. Nobody wants to go to the metaverse. That, you know how many billions of dollars Zuckerberg blew on that? Total failure. I think there's a big movement back to low-tech, off-grid living. Like Michael Yon was in Belize recently when I interviewed him. He was interviewing the Mennonites. Yeah, the Mennonites, man. They're kind of like, my understanding is they're kind of like Amish, but a different division or a different tribe of the Amish. But the Mennonites, you know, they don't use electronics and mobile phones. They're really good at being reliable farmers, and they've got hands-on real-world skills. They're very reliable. They have high ethical standards and morality. They spend like a third of their time studying scripture. Their children don't go on mass suicide shooting runs at schools. They're not on antidepressants. The kids learn how to grow food and be carpenters and so on, and, build buildings and barns and whatever. There's a lot to be said about that lifestyle because it can't really collapse. There's no cascading network configuration problem that's going to bring down the Mennonites or the Amish for that matter. They're still going to be here. When the city's burned down because of one misplaced IP address somewhere in some table and everything just collapses, the Amish are going to be doing just fine. They're like, well, what's an IP address? Hey, we're planting corn today. You want to join us, There was also a few years back, there was a major, I think it was an oil pipeline that was hit by a cyber attack, shut the whole thing down in the United States. I think it was along, kind of along the east or southeast of the country. I forgot the name of it. It was either oil or natural gas, one or the other, but it shut the whole thing down. But think about what we've just covered here today so far. Catastrophic outage affecting half of Australia, right? Comms outage because of a border router configuration problem. And then, a warning from NERC that there's not enough power infrastructure in about half of the United States for when it gets cold this winter. And then people turn on all their heat. What are you going to do? And then bank outages, the ACH failure that happened. That was also a configuration problem. Somebody had messed with the wrong file in the wrong way, and, the whole system cratered, right? And then hospitals under cyber attacks. And also governments have been hit by cyber attacks too. And I'm talking about like city governments or county governments, the cyber criminals, so to speak. It's kind of hard to call them criminals when they're taking down criminal governments, right? Isn't it? But the so-called cyber criminals, they take down a county, take down all its computer systems and everything, and the court systems, all the electronic records, and then the county has to resort to paper, which actually seems like not such a bad idea to just use paper records. I mean, they're reliable. And just wait for when the central banks try to roll out central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Man, the minute they try that, they're going to be subject to the most aggressive and dedicated hacking attempts in the world, in history. They're going to try to go after the CBDCs. And by the way, there will be failures in the CBDCs. This is one of the things that's going to bring them down. Going to be all kinds of failures. Can you imagine some central computer system run by the Federal Reserve or the Treasury that's supposed to keep track in real time of everybody's transactions everywhere all at once, and it's supposed to feed data to your local wallet, on your phone to show you what's your current balance, and so you can engage in a transaction at the grocery store using the CBDC, and it's all supposed to happen in real time. And it's supposed to be just, a fraction of a second. It's done, right? Is there any chance that that's going to actually work reliably? No, not a chance. You're going to be sitting there. You're going to be stuck. It's like, system failure. You can't buy food. You can't pump gas. You can't get paid. It's all going to fail because it's centralized. That's my point in today's podcast. These centralized systems become highly vulnerable to failure, whereas decentralized systems, i.e. cryptocurrency, they are very, very resilient by design. And they don't have to rely on one central database to do all the work. The work is spread out across, hundreds of thousands or millions of nodes. So believe me, when the CBDCs go down, what are people going to turn to? Like Monero or Bitcoin or something like that. Or just gold and silver if it's a local transaction, right? Because silver doesn't just vanish and crater because of a configuration file. You can have your junk silver dimes and quarters, and you could trade people with those, and it just works, even if the power grid goes down, even if IP addresses don't work. Silver works, gold works, crypto works. Central bank digital currencies are not going to work. And if you're skeptical of what I'm saying there, just think about, the food stamp program, the FBI gun purchase background check system, the NICS system, as it's called, or even like the U.S. Postal Service postage calculation integration APIs, which we have to use at our store, healthrangerstore.com. And some days, sometimes for more than a day, the Postal Service just goes down. Like all their computer systems stop responding. And then our systems that are supposed to, weigh the package and try to figure out should this go UPS or FedEx or USPS, the USPS portion is not responding. It's just down. And so then our system hiccups and then reverts to like FedEx or something. But I can tell you the USPS data center is not very reliable. It's down all the time. I mean, everything the federal government tries to run breaks. And because of the incompetence in the system, where they have to hire everybody who's woke instead of people who could actually do the job, right? It's just a woke hiring spree. Oh, you tick the right boxes. Oh, you're transgender? Yeah. You get the job. Do you know anything about writing code? No. What's your name? Dangerous Dan. Yeah. Dangerous transgender Dan. I can destroy configuration files on command. And that's who they're hiring. So every system run by an incompetent empire is going to break. This is why part of me can't wait for CBDCs to roll out, because I can't wait for them to fail. And I'm going to be talking about, look, Monero still works just fine. Guess what? Gold still works, Your CBDCs all cratered. Cash even still works, but not your CBDCs. I can't wait for that day to come. Seriously, it's going to be one of those like, see, I told you so days. Like, of course the government can't run a central bank digital currency. I mean, have you tried to interact with the IRS recently, by the way? Have you ever tried to interact with the IRS? I mean, if you want to know how CBDCs are going to function, just take a look at the IRS, because they also work with money and numbers. And that's a nightmare scenario. Like every employee of the IRS is Dangerous Dan or some rendition of Dangerous Dan. I mean, oh my goodness, the IRS. They can't even respond to mail from 2 years ago in some cases, but they're always sending you new mail. At least they do us, like new notices and new warnings and this and that. Oh, you owe us $1.62, right? That kind of thing. But they can never reply to the mail you've sent them. So they haven't replied to mail that we responded to them like 10 months ago. They haven't even opened it, but they're sending us new mail. I mean, so that's what you're going to get with CBDCs. And to some extent, that's what you get with, some hospital systems too. They don't know what they're doing. Tech integration is hard. It's hard to do it well. In fact, we spent, I think it's 18 months upgrading our Health Ranger store logistics system, by the way, that does all kinds of real-time, I mean, it's end-to-end. When someone purchases a product, it knows to order every raw material and every item that goes into making that product, the lid, the container, the shrink wrap, the label, the ink for the label, all these components go in, and there's a consumption of every component for every product. I mean, even the ink on the printer that prints the use by date, everything. And it's all now this big automated system that's tied into fulfillment, manufacturing, lab testing, resource allocation, everything. A massive system. Again, it took us 18 months to put that in place. Not easy. But I think we've done a better job than the federal government. Obviously, our system actually works. If you've ordered from us recently, by the way, and thank you if you have. Thank you for your support. We've had a massive outpouring of support during our Black Friday event, which is ongoing even right now, today. It continues today and tomorrow. If you've ordered from us, especially if you ordered on Thursday, you may have already received a tracking number, because we are processing orders now faster than we've ever done because of this big system that we have in place, and we have it all working. It's very smooth. And yesterday we rolled out the Immune Support Super Pack, and it was super popular. And it was 6 products altogether that's for your immunity, and people really love that idea. So we have a new pack that we're offering today at an incredible discount. It's called the Liposomal Immunity Combo Pack. And I'm going to describe that here. You can find that at healthrangerstore.com/Black Friday. And here it is. Check it out. All for $99.95. Here it is. You get liposomal vitamin C, 2 fluid ounces. You get liposomal vitamin D3 plus K2, 2 ounces. You get liposomal glutathione. Yeah, that's hard to find, hard to get. 1 fluid ounce. You get liposomal curcumin plus resveratrol. I mean, that's an amazing combination right there. 2 ounces. You get liposomal zinc, also 2 fluid ounces. And then buffered vitamin C powder, 5 ounces, 141 grams. All 6 of those products together normally would be over $140. Right now, while supplies last, $99.95. So we're putting that together for you today. It's live today at healthrangerstore.com/Black Friday, or you can just search for the liposomal immunity combo pack. Liposomal is spelled L-I-P-O, lipo, and then zomal is S-O-M-A-L, like liposomes. And then we also have a few hundred remaining of yesterday's immune support super pack, which gives you 60 capsules of quercetin, 90 capsules of N-acetylcysteine, NAC, which is highly sought after. It gives you 2 ounces of the organic elderberry and echinacea, a liquid supplement that's formulated by Ed Group. It gives you 60 capsules of the non-GMO vitamin C, and all of this is lab tested, of course. And it also gives you 30 packets of the vitamin D3 plus prickly pear immune support drink mix, which has very clean ingredients, plus magnesium glycinate, high absorption magnesium, 500 milligrams, 90 capsules. All of that, $99.95. It's a really great deal. That's still available while supplies last. So check all of that out at healthrangerstore.com/Black Friday. And all of this ends Sunday night, by the way. This is the once a year thing that we do that is our best deals of the year. And this year we were really blessed to actually have inventory because in years past, we've run out of inventory. We just couldn't keep up, supply chain problems. This year we actually have inventory. It's been, again, I feel really blessed, and also to have your support. It's been way more support than I anticipated. So thank you so much. We have big plans of what we're going to do. Now, one of the things I'm going to show you now is our video of our new gas chromatography triple quad instrument at our lab that's going to do the dioxin testing. So I was there earlier today. I apologize. The lab is a little bit messy at the moment because we just got this installed. We're not running it yet, and there's like boxes sitting around and stuff. But it is installed, and this is going to test dioxins, and we'll also be able to use it to test a lot of other things like certain pesticides and herbicides as well. So check out this video. Again, it's our new gas chromatography instrument for dioxin testing, finally installed, up and running in our lab, and I can't wait to start doing actual live testing with it. Check out this video. All right, folks. Mike Adams here with the dioxin testing equipment at our lab, CWC Labs. We just got this installed. This is the auto sampler. These are some of the liquid samples that will go into this system. Oops, I can get them out. There we go. Nothing in there at the moment. But this is the auto sampler. This is the system. Here's the main control screen. This is a GC system, gas chromatography, and that is the GC column right there. I think that's 60 meters in length. So the sample gets put into this inlet and it goes through this column, and then there's a temperature gradient, and then after it goes out, which is here, it goes into the mass spec side of this instrument, which is over here. So this does the mass spectrometry, and then you get results on your computer, which we have over here. Here's the analysis of dioxins in food using GC-MS. This describes one of the methods that we're using. And here's the computer system, brand new, set up, and some column boxes and so on. And this thing runs on helium, and we're going to need a lot more helium than this, but this is, let me show you the back. But we're going to be burning through tons of helium on this. So looking at the back of the instrument here, this is the back of the mass spec, and this hose right here, this is what pulls the main vacuum on it. So there's a rough pump, I'll show you, underneath this desk that's pulling the vacuum for the mass spec, and then helium is the carrier gas for the gas chromatography. And quite a lot of interesting plumbing on the back of this instrument, that's for sure. And, you know, it's got its networking connections and everything else. It needs quite a lot of power because there's a lot of heat that goes into this. So, you know, it's a special power circuit, as you can see there. So it's really, this is a combination, mass spec on this side, gas chromatograph on that side, and then they're just connected so that the gas stream is sent to the mass spec, which has, of course, you know, quadrupole. Actually, this is a triple quad mass spec over here. I know it's so small, you can't believe it, but it's actually a triple quad mass spec. So in essence, it's got, I believe it's got 2 quadrupoles and a collision cell, but I need to double check that. I'll know more once I get into using it. But it's amazing that they can put a triple quad mass spec in something this small, because let me show you by comparison. Like, this is the back of our Waters triple quad mass spec liquid chromatography instrument, and it's much larger, and that's the auto sampler and the liquid chromatography, you know, the LC part of the instrument is there, and this is the mass spec here. This is what we use for testing glyphosate, by the way, that instrument, and you can see some of the chemistry bottles on top for the solvents and so on. And yet over here on this new GC instrument, it is remarkably small, which is pretty darn cool. And it doesn't have a plasma torch like our ICP-MS, which is a heavy metals mass spec instrument. So turns out I'm going through training on this coming up in a few weeks. I'm going to spend quite a few days here with a trainer to go through all of this and, you know, learn this instrument, learn how to do maintenance, learn how to set up and run methods on it as well. And then we're going to start running dioxin testing for you, and we'll add that to our lab. You know, our routine test, which is heavy metals and glyphosate and microbiology. Here's our handy dandy ventilation capture system. That's a MacGyver operation right there. And sometimes that's what you have to do. This is the rough pump vacuum hose for the back of the mass spec from Waters. Look at that. All that heavy duty machining, man. That thing is really something. Let me show you the rough pump underneath the instrument right here. It's surprisingly small. These things have become a lot more efficient over time. So this is the rough pump. The vacuum is pulled through here, and you need a vacuum in order to have a high signal to noise ratio on any mass spec instrument. If you don't have a vacuum, you're just looking at noise all day. And this is, I think this is the primary oil capture system. This vents out everything that this rough pump pulls out of the inside of the instrument, which can include your vaporized sample. So that's why we have to have exhaust hoses here, because you're exhausting basically, you know, your sample. So stay tuned. It's going to get fun. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Man, I get all excited in the lab. I do. I just can't wait. I would love to spend like most of my time in the lab running different experiments, but alas, I have other practical things I have to take care of, like publishing stories and things. Oh, I'm also smelting gold as I'm recording this, by the way. Actually, I'm cooling gold that has been smelted. And at the moment, actually, the first burn I'm doing is at only 800 degrees Celsius, which doesn't melt gold, but it burns off a lot of impurities around it. So I'm actually extracting gold from a very interesting series of objects. I'm going to give you more details on this, you know, in, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, whatever. And so the first burn is at 800 C, and then that exposes the gold, and you can kind of see the different shapes of the gold. And then the second burn I do at 1100 Celsius, and that takes a lot of electricity. Speaking of the power grid, it burns a lot of juice at 1100 C. And then what happens is the gold melts, because gold melts at something like 1050 Celsius or something like that. And when it melts, it appears to get a lot smaller, but it's just becoming, you know, solidified. And then what I do is I open it up and I reach in with the tongs. Of course, I'm wearing a face shield and I've got the big smelting gloves on and everything. I'm fully protected. And I reach in with the tongs and I grab the crucible and I swirl it around is what I do. I've come to learn that this works great. And when you swirl melted gold and that crucible is like red hot, you swirl it around, what happens is the molten gold mops up all the other gold. So if you've had you don't want little gold particles here and little crumbles there and little nuggets over here. You want all one piece of gold. That's the way you do it. You swirl that sucker around. Now remember that crucible is also 1100 degrees Celsius. And you need to be careful with this. One time I sat that crucible down a little too close to the control panel of the kiln, and it started melting the control panel. It's like, I smell something burning that shouldn't be burning, and it's not me. Like, what is this? And sure enough, it's just the heat off the crucible, man. Like 1100 Celsius, you must be careful with that. So then what else is kind of cool about this is I took this gold sample to my lab. Of course I did. I ran an ICP-MS analysis of the metals because of course I want to know what's in it. I want to know the purity of it. And I've learned a lot about gold. Like, what is 24 karat gold, for example? It's not pure gold. It is not. I know a lot of people think that 24 karat gold is pure gold. It isn't. In fact, this sample was supposed to be 24 karat gold, and it actually contains, I'm looking at the results right now, about 12 parts per million iron, or almost 12. It's even got 1.5 parts per million magnesium, believe it or not. It's got 30 parts per million of copper, half a part per million of zinc, and it's got almost 34 parts per million of silver. So it turns out there's actually sometimes quite a bit of silver in 24 karat gold. But when I say quite a bit, maybe I should qualify that. This gold is still 99.99% gold. So the things that are not gold that's in this sample are less than 100 parts per million. So again, that's a tiny, tiny fraction of the overall composition. But 24 karat gold is not pure gold. Pure gold would have no other atomic elements in it. And actually, it's about the levels of purity that you want. Like if you want 4 nines gold or 99.99% gold, that's 24 karat gold. You can get that anywhere. If you want 5 nines gold, i.e. 99.999% gold, now you're going to pay a premium. You have to get some extra purified, super refined gold. Now, if you want 6 nines gold or 7 nines gold or whatever, you might be in the aerospace industry, or you might be, I don't know, at NASA or something, or building special spacecraft components. And for some reason, you have to have ultra, ultra pure gold. You could pay 10 times the price for that to have that level of purity. So the more nines that you want in it, like I want 99.9999999% gold, you're going to pay a freaking fortune if that's even possible. It's probably not even possible to get that pure. So anyway, this is what happens when you own a mass spec ICP-MS instrument. You start looking at stuff and you realize it's not all gold. But to non-geeks, to non-sciencey people, it's all gold. Like, just generally speaking, you could call it pure gold, even though it's not actually. It's not actually pure gold. It's pure for most people, just not science lab people. That's all I'm saying. It's like sometimes people say, well, that's pure water. There's nothing in there but water. It's all filtered, just water, nothing else. Like, really? Are you sure? Because pure water is an insulator. It's a perfect insulator, by the way. Electricity cannot move through pure water. In fact, the measurement to describe the purity of water is a measurement of mega ohms, which is resistance. And in our lab, we produce water that is 18 mega ohms. And that's called deionized water because there are no ions remaining in it, or virtually none, as close to zero as you can possibly get. And that water will not conduct electricity. You actually have to add something to it, like baking soda, to get it to start to conduct electricity. So, yeah, I mean, purity, Purity means one thing in a general sense, but in a technical sense, it's something completely different. Anyway, I'm not going to get carried away on that. Now, although I should mention, there are a number of people and a number of groups that they gather up like food samples from grocery stores or fast food places, and they send it off to labs to test for various things, different chemicals like forever chemicals or PFAS or whatever. And then when they find some level, then they'll issue, like a story or a press release to say, this food sample tested positive for, whatever chemical. And I, as a food scientist, I know that statement is meaningless. To test positive for something doesn't mean anything. It just means you have an instrument sensitive enough to detect maybe one molecule of that, but one molecule isn't going to harm you. One molecule of glyphosate or even one molecule of a dioxin is not going to kill you or harm you. The question becomes the concentration. Like, how much lead is in that moringa? It's not like, oh, moringa, it tested positive for lead. We saw a bunch of stories a few months ago. Oh, all this chocolate, tested positive for lead. Yeah, of course, all chocolate tests positive for lead if you have a sensitive enough instrument, because there's lead. I mean, every human being would test positive for lead. Every cup of urine will test positive for lead if your instrument is sensitive enough. I can find lead in everybody's pee. Not that that's the way I want to spend my holidays or anything, but my point is, yeah, there's a little bit of lead in everything. It doesn't mean anything to say that, though. Oh, it tested positive. Well, how much? How much is in there? How much cadmium is in your coffee? Don't tell me it tested positive for cadmium. Yeah, I know that. All coffee has cadmium in it. How much? Oh, it's only like 1 part per trillion. Oh, who cares? Give me another cup, man. This beer tested positive for glyphosate. Well, how much? 0.25 parts per billion. Really? That's it? I'll have another beer, thank you. Or let me put it this way. Probably every meat sample in this country would test, quote, positive for dioxins. And yet, I just had some barbecue brisket, last week. How can that be? If I know there's dioxins in everything, every meat, every pound of brisket has dioxins in it, why am I still eating brisket? Answer is because I know that testing positive doesn't mean anything. The question is how much dioxin is in this. And, we're about to find out, by the way. So I'm going to go get some barbecue brisket, in a month or whenever I get this instrument fully up and running, and I'm going to take it to the lab. And I'm going to try not to eat the brisket on the way to the lab. And then I'm going to digest it, do sample prep. It's called digestion. Sample prep, digestion, extraction, and then I'm going to run it and see the results. And I hope to God it's not like through the roof, out of range. This thing is like 99% dioxins. No, I hope that's not what I see, because that would freak me out. I don't know what I'm going to see. It'll probably be, picograms, not even micrograms or even nanograms. It'll probably be picograms. I don't know. We'll see what the instrument tells us. And I mean like picograms per gram of the sample, or for the liquid extracts, like picograms per milliliter. I mean, we'll see. Am I going to freak out over picograms per milliliter? I don't know. I guess I need to look at what levels are actually safe to consume and what substance is it and how much people are consuming. And we'll have to look at that in an intelligent manner and decide like what's the threshold of what's safe versus what's dangerous. But I guarantee you, probably every meat sample that you could test in this country has dioxins in it. So you're eating dioxins. You have dioxins in your cells. You have dioxins in your fat cells right now. And that's why you need to have anti-cancer foods. That's why it's good to eat broccoli sprouts and sulforaphane and anthocyanins. That's why it's good to have superfoods and chlorella, spirulina, astaxanthin. This is why I'm into nutrition. Look, the world is polluted. It's chemically contaminated. You're going to eat heavy metals, whether you like it or not. You're going to. If you drink coffee, you're drinking cadmium. I guarantee it. there's a 100% chance that there's some amount of cadmium in your coffee. There's a 100% chance there's lead in your chocolate. Should you avoid chocolate forever? No. You should just eat fiber, eat fresh fruits, drink plenty of water, have a dietary habit and lifestyle that will eliminate lead or bind to it and scoot it out of your body. That's the answer to this, and that's the part that people are missing. Same thing's true with many pesticide chemicals. Now, I eat organic. I don't want to eat conventional produce because it's loaded with pesticides. I don't mean just a little tiny bit. I don't mean picograms. I mean way higher. We're talking like micrograms per milliliter. And for that reason, I know there's a load that your body can handle, but beyond that, your body can't eliminate it. So it's a constant race where you have to have enough good nutrition and detox protocols to get rid of all the toxins that you're taking in at a pace that is a faster elimination pace than your intake pace. Because you're taking in toxins, guaranteed, if you're eating and drinking and living in modern society. And if you use any shampoos or lotions or traditional, deodorants and whatever, shaving cream, you're taking in toxins all day long. Can you get rid of them faster than the pace at which you are taking them in? That's the question. And that's why the things that we focus on at my online store, healthrangerstore.com, are things that help people heal. We understand that what we sell is ultra clean because we've done the testing. We have the most stringent testing standards in the world when it comes to supplements, foods, and superfoods. Nobody else has the standards that we do. And then the nutrients that are found in our products help your body naturally eliminate toxins or help your body naturally boost or support immune function, you see. So we give you the best of both worlds. Good nutrition, superior nutrition, and accelerated support of natural detox. And so the more of our products you consume, actually, the better your body can eliminate toxins from other products that are not as clean, or, personal care products or cosmetics that are contaminated with lead. Did you know there's mercury in a lot of skin whitening creams that are sold in Mexico and Central and South America? Yeah. A lot of Latina women in particular, they want to appear less brown. And so they will use skin whitening creams. I think this is crazy. There's nothing wrong with brown skin. Not at all. In fact, there are times I've been out in the sun. I wish I had brown skin. I'm a little too white, get burned too easily. But a lot of these women, they associate brown skin with being like a lower class person who works outside, harvesting crops in the field or whatever. And they tend to look a lot more brown. So they want to look more white, like an indoor person. And so they use these creams, and a lot of these creams have mercury in them. Can you imagine rubbing mercury on your skin? It's like, yeah, sure enough, it made it more white. Now, how's your liver doing? How's your kidneys? How's your dementia? Can you imagine just soaking up mercury like that? That's crazy, but that's for real. So in any case, I'm going to wrap it up here, but if you want all the benefits of our lab testing and our nutrition, of course, this is the time to shop with us, healthrangerstore.com/Black Friday. This is the best time of the year to do it, actually, today and tomorrow. And I will likely have, by the way, another broadcast for you tomorrow, and then I've got some major interviews for you that will begin airing on Monday. So there's a lot going on in the world right now, a lot of important events. So stay tuned, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. And also, get prepared for power grid failures, for comms failures, hospital failures. God forbid the county computer system goes down and they don't know you have 27 outstanding speeding tickets. The world might come to an end. Sometimes Dangerous Dan helps eliminate history that you don't want them to know about, huh? There's a warrant out for your arrest, but no one knows because the state trooper's computer system is all down. So there you go. Anyway, I know, it's bizarre. What a bizarre world. But thank you for listening. God bless you all. Take care. Have a great weekend. And I'll be back with you tomorrow with more updates. Take care. Thank you for supporting us here at Brighteon.com. And one way you can also help support us is by shopping at healthrangerstore.com. And we've got some really exciting new products to share with you here today. I've got samples on my desk, and there's three things to mention here. The one on the left, it's called Hydrate Elementals. It's a combination of coconut water powder, certified organic, and Aquaman, which is a mineral supplement that has some very special, unique properties. This is about mineral replenishment and hydration. You can learn more about it at our website, healthrangerstore.com. It's very popular, especially with people who do any kind of fitness or workouts. We've also got here on the right side a new trail mix product. This has coconut chips and nuts and almonds and walnuts plus raisins. It's a very delicious trail mix, and it's not just a bunch of junk and a bunch of crumbs and byproducts of nut processing. I mean, this is a high-end trail mix, all certified organic, all lab tested, including for glyphosate and heavy metals and more. Check it out at healthrangerstore.com. You're really going to enjoy this. And then finally, in the middle there, we have something brand new that I'm super excited about. It's a pine needle nasal spray. And that's in the green little small vials there with the nasal spray aerosolized tip on the top. I personally harvested the pine needles for this in Texas. They're loblolly pine trees because the pine needles are extremely high in shikimic acid. And then I oversaw the extraction of the shikimic acid and then the mixing of that into this formula. You can read the ingredients on our website. But this product is not being sold. It's only available for free as a bonus giveaway during our Black Friday sale event that's coming up. And watch for that. Join our email list. You'll get the announcements. You get all the links to participate in that. The only way that you can get that nasal spray with the shikimic acid using pine needles that I personally harvested in Texas is through the Black Friday event at healthrangerstore.com. And during that event, by the way, it's our biggest sale of the year. We're going to have the most products on discount, all kinds of amazing discounts, including on third-party products that are drop shipped and so on. Wait till you see the catalog and the landing page for that. It's going to be quite impressive. But you definitely want to take advantage of that and get some of this pine needle nasal spray, and look up shikimic acid too, because that's the molecule that is used to make Tamiflu, by the way. Very interesting fact. Also, one more thing, on our website, healthrangerstore.com, we now have available certified organic heavy cream powder. We've got it in pouches and number 10 cans. And this heavy cream powder is, of course, laboratory verified. It's tested for heavy metals and glyphosate and microbiology as well. And there's no junk in here. It's literally powdered heavy cream. It's not just maltodextrin and a bunch of garbage with cream flavor. None of that stuff. This is the real deal. That's why it's not cheap, by the way. But if you want to add to your food storage pantry, heavy cream, this goes a long way. And we also have, by the way, we have now organic white cheddar cheese powder, also in number 10 cans and pouches as well. So you can make your own macaroni and cheese pretty easily by combining this cheese powder with the organic cream powder and some salt and pepper and some onion powder, and get yourself some, organic macaroni, and it's all done. You have a really nice meal. So take advantage of this at healthrangerstore.com, and that will also help support this platform. We thank you for your support, and I'm committed to bringing you more interviews, more content, more analysis each and every day that helps you understand what's happening in our world, helps you navigate it, and also, importantly, helps you survive it. Thank you for supporting us here at Brighteon.com and healthrangerstore.com. Take care. A global reset is coming, and that's why I've recorded a new 9-hour audiobook. It's called The Global Reset Survival Guide. You can download it for free by subscribing to the naturalnews.com email newsletter, which is also free. I'll describe how the monetary system fails. I also cover emergency medicine and first aid and what to buy to help you avoid infections. So download this guide. It's free. It's my gift to you simply because I want like-minded people to survive.